recording. Yeah. Okay. So back to Toy Tale. We've done this one already. So purpose of lecture today and tomorrow is to just do full Crud, creating, reading, updating, and deleting, right? We have already done creating in this version of Toy Tale. We have kind of we have the likes working, right? But they actually don't update, they don't commit to the database, right? So that's going to be something that we're going to want to do. And then deleting will be kind of the last thing that we might even get to by tomorrow. And then we can maybe finally add, or, we can maybe finally add our search, this filter thing that we've been wanting to do, or at least I've been wanting to do since the beginning. Okay, so we're looking over this code. I'm going to take out all of the comments. The comments are going to be in a previous version of this that I already have the link to on GitHub. It's not going to be the same repository. So if you have any questions at all, or sorry, if you want to go look at the notes that I'm commenting out or that I'm taking out here, go back to that application and go look at them. So we should have, we should have done this already. We have our basic app component, right? And then when the component mounts, we use our component did mount lifecycle method, right? To make a fetch request to our database, which is being stored on using JSON server, localhost 3000 toys. We get the response. We grab the JSON object, the JSON information from the response. We take that array and we use the set state method to set our initial state toys as an empty array. Now it's going to be toys equals the toys array that we received from our object. Can anyone explain to me why we need to do the component did mount up here in the app.js and why our state, why our toys are also being stored in our app.js? Anyone want to unmute yourself and talk about why? Why are these two things happening in the app component?
I can try.
Okay.
So I think we have the state and toys in there so we can have access to it right away.
Mm-hmm.
And then once it's mounted, then we'll do this line of code from 14 to 18.
Okay, but why does it need to be an app? Why can't it be in any of the other components?
Because this is the parent.
Okay, can you talk more about what that means?
Means that everything, so how do I explain that? So from what I understand is that the parent can inherit from the child. So in order for, no, I can't do it. I guess in order for the code to pass along to the child, it needs, no, I'm a little shaky on this one.
Can anyone try?
I think along the lines of what Franklin was starting is the communication is between the parent and the child, but two children can't directly communicate with one another. So in order to pass information from one child element to another child element, you have to pass it through the parent essentially. So then we store the information in the parent so that changes happen to that information that's stored in the parent and passed to the other child.
Exactly. So we have two child components. One is a form to add a new toy, and the other is the toys container that's going to display all the new toys, and also each toy component itself needs to be able to increase its likes, right? So we have two components that are sibling components that need to have access to the same information, right? The form wants to contribute to the existing array of toys, and the toys container wants to contribute and also edit the toys in the current array of toys, right? So when we have two components that need to share the same source of information, following single source of truth principle, and also just the fact that they can't share information between each other, right? The information needs to be stored in the parent, the most common parent in between the two. Okay. So in our form component, right, we're using a controlled form here, which means that we have the event listeners on our forms, on our inputs, so that when people type, right, they are going in and changing the state, right? And then the value of the input field is a reflection of the state itself at that key, right, at that attribute. And then we're using this like handy shortcut here to say that the handle input can work for either the name or the image, right? Our make a new toy component is just making our fetch request. And then once the fetch request has been received, we're using pessimistic rendering here, right? To add the new toy, which this add new toy method is written inside of our app component. And then we pass that down into the toys container so that, remember, because we are changing something inside of app itself, right? We need to write a method for this instance of an app component. And then we need to bind this method to this instance of an app component so that when we pass it down, right? And when the method is executed, the execution context in the form does not get lost. Or sorry, inside of this callback function does not get lost, right? Excuse me. Okay. We've also written this add like button, right? That we've passed down also to the toys container, and then one level deeper into each individual toy, right? And in each individual toy card, when somebody clicks on the button to like a toy, then they then this method fires, right? This method that's all the way up in the app.js component, right? Receives the event. We take the toy name from the data set that we've stored on the button, right? And then we go in and we reset the state, right? We change the, we basically create a new array, right? And using map, we iterate over every toy object and we basically ask if the toy object that we're iterating over has a name attribute equal to the toy name that was selected on the button. The answer is yes. Then we want to use the spread operator to copy all of the attributes from the single toy object. But then in the likes, we want to increment that toy object's likes by 1. Otherwise, just return the same old toy object. And then we have this console log, this dot state after our set state runs. Any questions so far? We can really take time to review any of this. So if anyone really wants to kind of even just like erase a method and rewrite it over again, we have today and tomorrow to really do this. So please speak up if you're not certain about anything and want something to be redone.
I guess just line 21, we're just setting that data set just to pass it on just the rest of the objects.
We're just saving it so that we can use it later. Remember that in React, events are a little more, I don't know much about synthetic events. I wish I did. It's a great blog post if you guys want to do it. As an instructor, it just never comes up as one of the most important things that I have to teach about, but you'll often get an error saying that you need to persist the event further if you want to use it in a callback function. So instead of doing e.persist to keep the event alive longer, you know, it's better to just on line 21 take that attribute and save it to a variable so that I don't have to worry about whether or not the events lasted further along in my function. Does anyone feel confident or has read anything about synthetic events that they want to share? Okay. OSHA, I think we'll definitely get to previous state today, no matter what we do. So that's definitely going to happen. No questions about controlled forms? Everyone understands this on changes and handle input? Okay, I'll also, Franklin, did you watch the original lecture on controlled forms? I don't want to repeat anything that is in a different lecture. I want to, if someone's watched the lecture and has practiced and still doesn't get it, then I want to help people out. But if you haven't ever seen a controlled form, I can't explain it from zero all over again. What's basically just happening here is that on each input field, I have a callback function for when someone has changed an input, right? So when someone types something in or erases something, right, there's this onChange event listener that's firing. The handle input event listener takes that target event and it's saying, okay, let's grab the name of the input, right here, and then the value, which is extremely strange because the value is just a reflection of state. But something about the way React handles forms is that the e.target.value is still registered even though the value is kind of fixed to be a reflection of state. So there's this really strange thing going on here, right? So whatever I've typed in plus what's already been in there before gets saved to this value, right? And then the input name again is just something that we grabbed from here, name or image. And then I just use the set state method to say, well, in this case, we actually don't need to use previous state. We can just say, this dot set state, the input name is kind of getting interpolated here using this bracket notation. And then,
I have a question.
Right.
So I had this come up in the lab, and this is something I just couldn't figure out, like I think twice, but in this handle input function, I tried to do this dot state and then do, input name colon e target dot value. And you how come you have to set it to a variable before you call it?
Right, because remember in set state is one, a callback function, it's one, a method, and two, it's asynchronous, right? So let's just look at the error that we get here. I shouldn't be getting any errors. But when I type something in, it's obviously working, right? However, if I take these two things out and I rely on the e.target.name and I do e.target.value, we're gonna get a message.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're not getting a message. I don't know. Why is it?
Oh, that's strange. Yeah, I kept getting like some kind of errors.
You know, another weird thing that happened, the last time I was giving this lecture, I was trying to talk about pure components, right? I don't know if everyone remembers, I was trying to talk about pure components. And the one thing that was very strange was that I was saying, okay, well, pure component prevents components from unnecessarily re-rendering if the props and the state are the same. And for whatever reason, when we increased the likes for one of the toys, we got every toy card to re-render. And I couldn't figure out why. And then today I turned it on and now it's working. Before, when I clicked on a like for a toy, all of the toys re-rendered, right? It would say rendering component for Woody, for Buzz Lightyear, for everybody. But then today when I turned it on, it's only doing the one at a time and the other ones aren't re-rendering. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I just needed like reset React or something, but that was another strange thing that also is happening to me. So I wanted to touch on that again. Yes, pure component works, right? If I were to make this a regular component, if I were to click on a light, you see that all of the toys get re-rendered. But when we use a pure component in React, it prevents unnecessary re-rendering when props and state don't change. So I just wanted to point out that. But if we go back to this form, let's see, OSHA, if we can find another place where this is maybe behaving. Because what should be happening is if I say e.consolelog e, yeah, the synthetic event, it's working fine. Where I would have also expected this to happen maybe would have been inside of here. If I were to do like this. Here we go. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Here. So again, I'm not exactly sure why Not exactly sure why it's working in one place or another. Again, I'm not completely versed in synthetic events, but we're getting things at this area. This synthetic event is reused for performance reasons. If you're seeing this, you're accessing the property target on a released and nullified synthetic event. This is set to null. If you must keep the original synthetic event around, use event.persist. So all this is saying is that events can only be used, right? I think what happens from just reading this error, what I think I'm understanding is that events can only happen one at a time in JavaScript, right? And so that React keeps track of this events using the same synthetic event object. So by the time that we're trying to access the target of an event, React has erased that event's properties and has said, okay, well, I've erased this event and prepared it so that it's a blank slate for the next event that comes, right? And if you need to reuse any of the properties on this event, if you must keep the original synthetic event around, which means if you need it to last a little bit longer than what React had planned before it erased it again, we need to use the e.persist, right? So in the past, I had said e.persist before, and again, I don't know how long e.persist lets it durate for. It's maybe the next time the e.target gets called or next time a method gets called on the event. But once I persist the event to last longer than React allows the events to last for, then we shouldn't be getting this error anymore. Again, I don't know the science behind it because in my head, I thought that, this would have been the same situation in the toys container or the form, right? To me, this is the same situation. So again, I don't know why this is happening or, this isn't causing any errors, but it has to do with this thing in React where React kind of manages events in like a slightly different way. So if we need an event to behave longer or to persist longer than it would, because React will again erase that event and prepare like an event, and the empty will clear the event object and prepare it for the next event that happens, right? Then we have to persist the event for slightly longer, whatever this means. So I think that this is like a right place for investigation. My solution and the solution that even React tells you to do is just persist the event slightly longer. Does that help, Osha?
Yes, definitely. And so we can either do e.persist or we can set them to variables and the variables capture the properties.
Right, the variables capture the properties before the application, before React gets rid of the event's attributes. So that's why I said you can do it one way or the other.
Awesome, thanks.
So you can, just capture the event. You can just capture the values that you want, or you can persist the event longer. In a situation where, I don't know, I think that in most cases you can just grab the value that you want and save it to a variable. I think that's, I can't really think of a situation in which you couldn't just do that. Okay. Good. I think that's a good reminder. Again, I'm not sure why it's working here. You would think that it wouldn't, but it is. So I don't understand. Okay.
Chris.
Yes.
I've seen all the lectures and I've been caught up on all the labs up until now. However, and this is a general question, but I'm not confident on the just overall structure of everything. Like I got the conditional forms, I got the state, I understand, I think everything siloed, but for example, on the last lecture, when in the last 5-10 minutes, you kind of like restructured everything, it just went way over my head.
What in particular?
Like when you moved all the parts around and you're like, oh, we got to move this to there and move this here. And I frankly just didn't understand it. And I haven't seen the entire lecture over again twice, but
It's still on Toytail, right?
It was on Toytail, yeah.
So okay, a couple principles to remember. One, the first thing to remember is for anybody, really, I mean, until you get really good at planning or understanding how things work, just start coding in app.js. Just put everything in there. until you start recognizing, okay, this bit of information is taking up a lot of logic, right? In this app, it should probably go somewhere else, right? But once you remove an app, once you remove HTML from the app and move it into its own component, in order to ensure that the functionality still works, you may have to pass things between the new components, right? If I were writing the form at the at the state level, right? Like if I brought this form back in here and brought it into my app.js, right? I probably could have a lot of things would have happened. Like our state up here would have also included like name and image, right? And I would have had to move all of these excuse me, methods down with it, but I would have kept, I'm obviously, what is going on? But I obviously could keep this one, right? So
so that's like, this is a perfect example where I kind of get a little lost with what you're saying. You said like, if you were writing the form at the state level, app.js, and I'm just getting confused as to what's going on.
Let's literally do this. I'm just going to go in here and I'm just going to put the form right back in.
Right back in where? From where?
All going right into app.
Okay.
Okay.
So you just copy the entire form and pasted it into the app.js file.
Everything, like everything from app is now in here.
Everything from the form, right? Is
Yep.
now in the app.
I can get rid of this. I'm not even importing the file anymore.
Okay, cool. And then on the bottom, when you're rendering it, are you passing anything through props to the form?
Well, no, because remember, the only thing that I passed down to props to the form was this add new toy function, and now I just say this dot add new toy because it's on the same level now, right? Does that make sense?
Where's the form being rendered?
Right here. I just really put the HTML right into my app.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm just
it's not in its own component.
No, but this is what I'm telling you. What you can do is you can just start coding everything in your app.js, right? This still works. And I'll put in a Woody here, and I made a new toy. Everything is working on this level. But when I look at my application, I think, wow, there's a lot of stuff in here that deserves to be in its own place, right? This entire form component, this entire form, oops, does this say search bar? It shouldn't say search bar, it should say form, sorry. Well, not that we're actually calling on it at any place, but just to be consistent. I've written out this entire HTML and I'm saying, okay, cool. So I wrote out all of this HTML, but there's some logic in here that is crowding this component up, right? I want to separate out the logic, right? So all I can do is say, okay, well, this and this, and you could, well, no, this needs to stay up here because this is going to change all of the toys. So you have to ask yourself, okay, well, this logic needs to stay up here because, right, this is like the parent application, right? And there are going to be two child components that can't speak with each other, so they need to go through the common parent. So I'm going to keep this here.
And the parent is controlling the state in this sense.
Yes. Every component can have its own state, but the purpose of state is or the reason that a parent needs to have state for a particular reason is because two of its child components, oh my God, need to also have state. Need to also have the state of the information that the parent component has. So
I don't even, so if there is a parent and two children in this case, is it best to keep the state in the parent for the children?
You have no choice but to keep the state in the parent component. Remember, when two child components need access to the same information, right? the rule is it's impossible to do it otherwise. You will literally be forced to put the information in the parent, because two sibling components cannot communicate with each other. So when they need access to the same information, the information needs to be held in the parent. It's not a choice. It's not a matter of preference. You have no other option. Your application simply will not work.
Now, I understand how two siblings can't talk to each other. They need to get the information from the parent. But I think I don't understand how that's even necessary for this app. I see it as the two siblings are exclusive of each other, and they could potentially hold state in and of themselves. But that's maybe where I'm completely lost.
Right. So let's go back and let's separate this out. So I'm going to put the component back to how it was before, right? So I've abstracted everything into the form file. Okay. The only difference now is that this because the form was using this method, right? I need to now pass it down. I need to pass it to that component instead of because it's abstracted away, right? So you're saying that these two components are completely separate. The form is separate from the toys container, right? But when I'm done adding a component, when I'm done adding a toy, how is it going to get, how is the toys container going to display it?
I thought the form was adding a new toy through fetch, and then
how do we
app, because app is pulling in the fetch after the component mounts.
Just one time at the beginning of the application and never again.
Okay, so the toy container is what's keeping track of state through its parent, which is app in this case, and anytime state changes, it re-renders.
Exactly.
And that's how the two siblings have to be, or like kind of communicating with each other, let's say.
Because both of these components need access to state. The form wants to contribute to the toys, and the toys container wants to display the toys and also change property values of the toys inside, right?
Okay, I think it's starting to become a little more clear to me. So then, I guess back to your kind of suggestion of just writing everything in app.js until you really fully understand it and can break out the components separately and then pass things in between components. Is it kind of best practice, at least for starters, to keep state in the parent for child components? That is.
You have to ask yourself, if no other component needs this information, does it need to be in state, right? For the form, for example, no other component needs to know about the controlled input forms, right? The form is allowed to have its own local state for things that belong to it, for things that just belong to it as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
The form needs, in order, controlled forms need state to keep track of inputs, right?
Right. Okay.
App can have things in state that just belong with this component, right? But may also, out of necessity, hold information that any child component might also need, right?
Right.
So determining where something needs to be held comes down to literally asking yourself, what information needs to go where? If there's information that needs to go to two components, it needs to be held in the common parent. If there's information in one component that just needs to go within itself or its children, right, then it can stay at a lower level, right?
Okay. Thank you.
We did this before. If you go back and look at the lectures again, I originally was storing the toys inside of the toy container component. And I even had my fetch request in here. But it wasn't until I built out the form where I was like, okay, well, the form wants to add, the form, which is a sibling of the toys container, wants to add a toy to the toys container, but it can't. So I had to move everything up one level. That's what you're talking about.
It can't, so the toy container couldn't add because it was a sibling?
Right. If I'm in this component, how do I get information from the form? It's impossible.
Right.
The only way to do it is to have the parent delegate and say, okay, I'm keeping track of the toys. So if the form wants to add toys, you have to add them to me. And the toys container wants to display the toys that I also have.
Right, okay.
They both need to reference this place. So I think that's what you were saying you got lost. The render was in the toys container, or the initially when we first built this out, I said, okay, well we can do it here, right? We can do the component did mount, we can make our initial fetch, and we can store the toys here. But it wasn't until someone wanted to contribute to the toys container where we said, okay, well this is impossible to share this information between two siblings. So let's move this up one level.
No, through the form is what you're saying. And that's kind of what happened in the last 15 or so minutes of the last lecture when you moved things to the app.js, the parent.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have to re-watch. But thanks. That helps.
Okay.
It'll come. I just gotta get more practice. Thank you.
For sure. Any other questions? No other questions about architecture, building a React application? I think that's the hardest part. What Ryan is talking about. What goes where? I think that's the building application is I think the trickiest part of React. Okay. All right. So let's keep building out Crud. So we've made a new toy, right? Didn't we put what's his name in here last time? Forky. I might be using a different database. We can increase the likes, but then when we refresh the page, the likes are not up to date. So what do we need to do? What do we need to add to our add like method? The add like method is using optimistic rendering, right? It's going ahead and changing the DOM, but it's not making any changes to the database. So what do we need to add to our add like method? Nobody, come on. Yes, fetch to save the changes, exactly right. So what do I need to do? Someone tell me what to type. Too early in the morning? Fetch to where?
I got sidetracked. You're just updating the toy, right? With the like.
Okay, so is this really going to get me to where I need to go? Toy
You
ID.
need the ID for the toy.
Okay. Do I have access to the toy ID right here? I need more information. So what can I change about? What can I change to help us out here? Sure, I like toy's idea. Add the toy ID to the data set. So let me just double check that I'm getting the ID here at all. For a toy. Nope. I think it's because inside of the toys container, I'm not giving it an ID. Here we go. Okay, so here are the IDs for toys. I like this. And then Tori says, let's go in here and then let's put the ID here. We'll call this toy ID now. And then the only thing that we'll have to do is oh, right, toy ID, as Ryan figured out, is always lowercase. Or maybe it's always case sensitive, but I think maybe it was also always brought things down to lowercase, I think. And then so in here, we'll change, we're not looking for the name. Now we'll look for the toy ID. And we'll bring this up a level, and then we'll also implement this here. So then we can say, or we can, if we want to use backticks, we can interpolate here and say, wait. Uh-oh, this isn't working yet. Toy ID, toys container, data dash toy ID, data set toy ID.
The line underneath that, I think that you have toy ID capitalized still. Oh, never mind. That's a variable.
Let me log toy ID really quick. Oh, that should work. So then toy object ID equals toy ID? Question mark, toy object likes, toy object that likes, toy object is dot state. Oh, what's going on? Oh, I think it's because the toy ID here is probably a string. Or it's the other way around. This is the string. Keep in mind that when stuff comes from an API, the ID is probably an integer, but when we store stuff inside of a data set, that's going to be a string. So there we go, I fixed it. All I had to do was take the thing that I was pretty sure was a string and turn it into an integer. Okay, Micah, that's great, except we're not making a GET request here, right? What kind of request are we making? We're making a put request. And we have our headers. What is it? Application type, JSON, sets, JSON. And then we have a body. Oops, I'm so sorry. I'm in the component did mount. Wrong place. Didn't mean to scare you. So this is kind of where it's going to get tricky because I'm going to need to do it in two. I'm going to need to do this in two spots. So I'll say likes, and then I'll have to say like this dot state dot find toy. Oh, you need access to the. Hold on one second. All right. So I'll say like toy.id double equals toy ID, and then we'll say dot likes plus 1. So what I'm doing here is to construct the body. I am looking at the toys in my state. I'm trying to find the one toy that has the ID that matches the toy ID here. And again, I'll probably have to, come on, please. And then once I found that toy, then I'll just want to grab its likes and then increment it by 1, and then that's probably what's going to go in the body. I'm using the live server, and so I'm afraid that what might happen is that this might be constructed in a slightly different way. Parsing error. What did I do?
Do we need to do body like JSON.stringify?
Totally. I always forget to do that. And then that closes that, and this closes that. But what's the error that I'm getting? Okay. So let's look inside of my live server here and see if this works. Ryan, doesn't find toy ID work. How are you going to pass in an ID and find is supposed to know that you're looking for an attribute?
I thought find only, you can just put in a number which automatically knows that it's an ID of the object you're looking for. So in that case, you could just use toy ID.
That's
No?
Ruby Rails, though.
Oh.
That's a Ruby thing.
All right. All right. Thanks.
Okay, so it looks like it worked. And then if I refresh the page. Okay, it didn't like that. I don't think. Let me actually yeah, it didn't like it. ID 1. I think what it maybe wants to do is to return the whole body. Again, maybe wants to return the whole, let's see. Maybe if we do a patch. And I'm gonna have to get rid of Buzz or Woody. This one here. It's okay, we'll bring it. Patch toys 2. No, it's not liking that. So it looks like we'll have to just redo. It looks like what we're going to do is we're going to do this. We'll say let toy equal that. And then over here, we'll use the spread operator again. Say toy. and then say likes is toy.likes plus 1. And it'll be a put request. Let's try this out. Nope. How did they do that? How did they do this in the Toy Tail lab? I'm gonna have to go look it up. Strange. This also goes outside of it. Okay, hold on a second. I thought this would be a little bit more simple. Give me a second. Yeah, it is a patch. And it should just be likes. What's going on? Patch and likes. Okay. Let's try this again.
Yeah, we can't see your screen.
I know. Just trying to figure out why. When I click Mr. Potato Head, it's supposed to go up. Oh, and there's also this, which is very strange. There's like 2 toys.
At some point in time when we're updating the state, are we adding in the toys array instead of just the toys object?
The toys array instead of the toys object? What do you mean?
Like at some point in time when you're updating the state, is it possible that you've pushed on the array rather than the object?
This has to just do with what's in our post requests, though. Following the directions in the let me make sure that this works. Oops. Log. Yeah. I just don't understand why X is the new number. String, I don't know. It's receiving the patch request, but it's not doing anything. Wonder. No, there's no strong params because it's just using the JSON server. Headers, content type, accept, application JSON. Maybe it's really picky about this kind of thing. It doesn't make sense. That's great. Oh, there it goes. I guess it was the headers, which is, oh, no, it wasn't. I didn't save it. Was it? Yeah. Okay. The headers were just extremely specific, I guess.
Wait, so it was the fact that that except was not a key? It was a string?
Yeah, but I think it's just, oh, no. It was me. I did the headers wrong. Look, I wrote them totally wrong. It should have been, yeah, it should have said content type application JSON. That was my fault, everybody. Sorry. That's what it was. Okay. Yep, my bad. Did anybody catch that? No? Okay. So all I did for this update here was to, right, we were already using kind of pessimistic rendering on this end. So I just kept the pessimistic rendering here and I added the fetch request. Any questions about completion of the patch, of the update? And then tomorrow when we continue, we'll do a delete request. Okay, we'll delete one of the toys. So again, today and tomorrow are really just solidifying these concepts even further. So if you have any further questions about this kind of stuff, you know, please let me know. And then for those of you who I haven't had one-on-ones with yet, I'm spending, or meetings with yet, I'm spending all of the meetings this week building applications from scratch. So, you know, during our meeting times together, and hope, and you know, if you want to, come in during open office hours as well, obviously please do. But the lectures this week, today, tomorrow anyways, Thursday is going to be something completely different. We're going to learn about routing. So if I click on Woody and I just want to see Woody, how do I get the application to change to be localhost 2001/Woody and just show Woody's, you know, part of the application. So that's going to be on Thursday. But today and tomorrow are really just review for the concepts of last week, and then yeah, building up full Crud. Once we get the delete done tomorrow, we can practice doing filtering and stuff like that. Yeah, pessimistic render, or sorry, oh, this is optimistic rendering. Optimistic rendering. Optimistic is when you're like, you know, yeah, it's gonna work, that's fine. The request is gonna go through, we need to check. Right? Pessimistic rendering is like, don't think it's gonna go through, we should make sure.
Chris, I have a general question in terms of the labs this week and the lectures. I know this week lectures, they're around Crud. It seems like the labs this week, as far as I have seen, have Crud not even involved necessarily. Could you kind of help explain that?
There are not enough React lectures.
All right.
I just fill them in with stuff that I think, everything that we were supposed to cover this week, I already covered last week.
Okay.
Usually there's supposed to be a whole lecture on props and a whole lecture on lifecycle methods. I don't think that that's necessary.
Makes sense.
Yeah. If you have questions about props or lifecycle methods, you know, come to open office hours and talk about it in the meetings. But I felt like the React lectures didn't build out. Toytail is, you know, I take a little bit of liberty in all of the lectures that I give. Most lectures that are assigned or that have the lesson plan for do not go into as much detail as I've gone into with Toytail. So I think this is more important to practice than some of the smaller stuff. That's just me. So yeah, the lectures don't necessarily match the lessons. Okay.
Yeah, it makes total sense. No, I appreciate that. Actually, it's better. The lessons this week, I'm kind of halfway through the labs, and it does seem like we did cover a lot of it last week. So I was just wondering where Crud was, but that makes sense in terms of, especially from a project standpoint, having more practice to actually create a project with Crud.
Once we learn about routing, which we'll do on Thursday, then you'll know everything that you really need to know besides Redux for your projects. So like I said at the end of the lecture last week, I mean, we've really covered everything. Like at this point, it's just practice. So a lot of people have been asking me, you know, what to do, and I'm just build something. There's tons of free APIs. I've been using the Google Books API, right? You can build your own free DB.json with C data extremely quickly. That's all, you know, JSON server is. It's just give me a .json file with an object and it automatically will respond to all RESTful routing requests, right? So if you're sick of the labs and they're not making sense to you and you don't know what your weak points are, you know, like I said in the meetings this week, I'm with everyone, I'm building a project from scratch. So, you know, I think building is just the only way to really learn React. You have to just build stuff. So if you're feeling stuck or feeling like the lessons aren't taking you where you want to go, just build something. Okay. All right, sorry that, yeah, today and tomorrow are a little bit disjointed because I'm really just kind of having them open for like review and group practice. But yeah, tomorrow we'll build out delete. And then, like I said, on Thursday, we'll be able to practice showing different pages, different views, okay? So maybe we'll even kind of get a hint at that tomorrow. Maybe we can do that too. But yeah, that's it for today. I will see you all tomorrow. Or stick around if you